I've hit the record button. We are now recording, which means we should probably do a show intro. I'll explain why we're not doing a regular clip here in a moment. Well, I mean, I'll explain it in a few moments, but, yeah, whatever. Stream the Machine, episode 41, for January 2015, the 24th of that month in that year. We're ready to roll.
You're listening to a Fly Science Productions podcast. Welcome to Stream the Machine.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Stream the Machine, episode 41 of that podcast that we do. When I say we, I usually mean Tony, but he is out today, so you get to have a solo adventure with yours truly. And my throat, which definitely has decided that it wants to be here for this as well. I didn't play a clip like I wanted to before we played the intro, so this one's quickly becoming a classic.
Chainsaw to the dick.
How could that not be? How could it not get any better than that? Alrighty, well, we're going to roll through this today. I've got a couple announcements to start off in the beginning, and then we will just have a sort of a shortened show. It looks like Ross is killing it with the Karmafied topic again, so we will have a lot to discuss later. That seems like it might be pretty deep as well. But that is good stuff. So, here's the deal with today's show before we really get into the show proper. I'm trying to decide. So if you notice now, my camera's in a different spot. I'm trying to decide if I should be looking at the camera when I'm talking, because it just feels weird to do that since I normally don't. Or if I should just continue looking at my screen like I normally do. It's easier to focus on things that way. But the camera's in a different spot because I moved my TV out of my room. I no longer have that big 60-inch TV right here. I have a smaller 24-inch monitor that I found for super cheap. It was a $300 and some monitor. It was $80 on Craigslist. A friend of mine at work found it, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna buy that. So sprung for that because Rachel had been wanting a TV in the bedroom for a while, so I made the sacrifice. Got rid of that. Did I say 60-inch earlier? I think I meant 40-inch. It was a 40-inch TV. Anyways, got rid of that. My main gaming visual, and thought, you know what, it might as well go a little bit smaller and allow her to have that in the room, which she's been enjoying watching Grey's Anatomy on. So has proven to be a wise choice at the moment, and hopefully gets me some points for bargaining that I can use as a bargaining chip later on. I do want to get a bigger monitor, but we will see. We will see. We have other things coming up to talk about that dictates whether or not I will be getting a monitor. So anyways, you're noticing Tony's not here today, and it's a solo show, and it's just myself. Tony sent me a text yesterday and said, hey man, you know what? I was hanging out with some friends in one of the local cities back in Illinois, and he thought he was going to make it a one-night thing, but it just kind of was going well and having fun, and wanted to make it a two-night thing. And I said, you know what, man? It's totally cool. So he is chilling with some homies. You know, if it wasn't for the whole 50 episodes, 1 year, trying to make try to make them match up, I honestly wouldn't have minded having a day off, and probably would have done that normally, and would have said, hey Ross, hey Tony, you know what? Let's just take a week off. But now that we're doing, trying to get the 50 episodes to match up with our 1 year mark, we just got to do it. We got to go ahead, and thought, you know what? Why not do a solo show? And we'll call Ross in later, and we'll try to make everything a little bit shorter than usual, so that everyone can come in, enjoy a different kind of show, and then get out and do whatever they're going to do on the weekend. What else is there to say before I really dive in here? Nothing really. Episode 41, so we're 9 episodes away. If you like the show, go to iTunes, give us good reviews. If you don't like the show, go to iTunes and give us bad reviews. Any of that is beneficial and helps us helps the show grow and helps us sort of figure out what we're doing wrong and what we're not doing wrong. If one of us is incredibly boring, then we can figure it out that way. So last week I talked about, also one of the things that's going to be different for this show is I no longer have a Tony to talk and allow me to drink my coffee. So occasionally I'm going to have to take a sip, and you will get to enjoy the silence in between my words when I do have to do that. But last week I talked about learning Japanese, and it's coming along nicely. I definitely cannot speak the entire language yet, which is to be expected after approximately 2 weeks of studying, but I can read what's essentially the first alphabet. For layman's terms, I guess they have a sort of a couple of alphabets that they use and switch in between while writing. And I can read the first one competently, and at least sound out the words. May not have any idea what I'm saying, but I can at least sound them out and kind of work my way through that way. I'm working on the second alphabet right now. I've started to learn some basic grammar and sentence structure and other things like that. That really is just me kind of jumping the gun because I'm excited and I'm enjoying my time so far. But who would have thought? This is 2 weeks ago. I would have said to myself, "All right, well, learning Japanese seems cool, but damn, this seems really intimidating." Look at this chicken scratch. Like the old saying is it's like learning a different language, but it truly is. And to be able to already read, a select 50 new characters that are not, even partially related to the English alphabet, whereas if you're learning Spanish, it's really close, so you can just kind of sound things out. And but it's interesting, and I'm proud of myself. I've definitely, like I said, I haven't achieved anything crazy yet, but I wouldn't have known within 2 weeks that I would have been able to read a good portion of Japanese, at least like 33% of it. Like I said, I'm still missing one of the alphabets, so I can't read a lot, but it's good stuff. On that note, while I can remember it, if you are listening into the show today and you're like, God damn, this is boring, go ahead and send me a text, send me a message on Facebook, send me something. If you have questions, general questions, don't ask me super personal, weird whatevers. But if you want me to announce your name and ask you on the show, or answer you on the show, if you just have questions about a favorite something or a time where I might have done blank or whatever, keep the show, going. I would pull up the Twitch stream, but occasionally that gives us hiccups in our quality. So I'm not going to do that today in order to keep our quality on spot. So a few more introduction things here before I dive into news, and then really comes Ross after that. Very relaxed atmosphere on today's show. Not getting very excited. I am excited, but it's very chill day. It's a good vibe. It's a good show to listen to while you're just chilling in bed, not wanting to get out of it. Whereas normally we try to wake you guys up. I spent the last 2 weeks, actually kind of coinciding with the learning of Japanese, playing a game called Yakuza. Actually a series called Yakuza. And to boil it down to the simplest terms possible, the Yakuza are basically the Japanese mafia. It's a bunch of gangsters that sort of have permeated the sort of everyday life of the culture and have sort of a prominent figure in there. It's with the U.S. and even just with the mafia and stuff like that. It doesn't seem they always seems very behind the scenes, and the Yakuza is also very behind the scenes. But if you read up on the Yakuza, they also interact with people throughout public. It knows that that everyone knows that they exist. It's a lot of it, I'm sure, is shady stuff, but it's an interesting difference from our quote unquote gang organizations and stuff like that, because they are a little bit more transparent. It seems. I'm sure there are some bad things that they do, but they're also they were heavily involved in the 2011 I believe it was an earthquake in Japan, where a lot of people complained that the Japanese government did not respond to the emergencies as timely as they should have, and the Yakuza were giving out, relief aid, allowing people to stay in their offices in order to survive, and giving out food and water and all these other things that, it's can you imagine the Mafia doing that, or the Crips and the Bloods? I mean, given people like Crips and the Bloods, street gangs are much different than the Yakuza. They're an organization. They're very sort of tiered and based on honor and a couple of other things that make them very different from Western culture gangs / mafia. But interesting stuff anyways. Won't go into too much detail about the actual games, but I've been loving them. I sat down and played the first one, and I had purchased the third and the fourth one. I purchased the later ones thinking, oh, these are the newer ones, they'll be fun to play, I'll get through them, they're super cheap, it was like $20 a piece, and they're, PS3 games. But then I read online, and they were like, well, play the first games, you don't have to play the older ones to enjoy the newer ones, but if you enjoy one Yakuza game, you will probably enjoy them all. And I thought, okay, well, you know what, I will give it a try. I really wanted to play the PS3 ones because they're brand new, so why not? Why wouldn't I want to play a brand new one? And it's an action game, and it's, you're beating the shit out of people, and it's such a, I don't know if it's because I was in martial arts, but I love a good fist fight game, fighting in the street and just, it's that's what it is. It's really entertaining though. And so you're playing as a guy who was framed for a murder and went to 10 years into prison. And he comes out, and his family, like, the Yakuza family, you're basically, imagine the job you work at right now, and then all of you are considered family. You all rely on each other. You all talk to each other on a daily basis. That's what it is, but much, much deeper for the Yakuza. So his family, it's not like literal family, but it's these people he knows and he works with, and, they're just in disarray. And so then he decides, I've been in prison for 10 years. I need to figure out what happened. What's going on? And so that's what he does. And one thing leads to another, of course, with things like the Mafia. And things get crazier and hairier. And, he's this end-all, be-all, like, ultimate fighter dude. And so you play as him, and you crush dudes on your way to the end of the game to figure out what's going on. So I played the first one and loved it. And I was like, damn. Well, I guess I'm going to play the second one, which is also... So these are PS2 era games, okay? These are older games. And so I go on to the second one, and all this time I'm thinking, I just really want to get to the new ones, but, these ones are also really good. And I play the second one. Second one is also amazing. Like, really, really good. So finally get to the third one, play that. It's as good as I could have ever dreamed. Because it's the same awesome, badass, just kicking dudes in the face kind of stuff, mixed with really good and unpredictable sort of emotional storytelling. Like, very good stuff. I talk about Metal Gear Solid having a really good story. Yakuza really sort of, like, raised the bar, because the entire time I'm watching it, because, I'm playing it, it gave me a Metal Gear Solid vibe because it was so deep and intense into the story. And so I play the third one, and now I'm finally on the fourth one. And I will probably beat the fourth one after this show. I'm excited. I will finish the show, upload it everywhere, and then I will be jumping on to play Forza is what I was going to say. I don't know why I said Forza. Forza is a race car game that I've never played. I'm going to jump on and play Yakuza. And I'm excited. The fifth one comes out this year. This is what sparked me wanting to play this whole series. The fifth one comes out this year. It's got perfect scores in Japan for ratings. This is the first one out of the entire series, so it should be amazing, and I'm excited for it. And so that's kind of what I'm preparing for. So that's what I've been doing for the last 2 weeks, just crushing those games like crazy. This upcoming Valentine's Day, I have plans now. Nothing's official yet. Nothing official until my next paycheck. But I am planning to go to an event called Katsucon, which is basically one of the nerdiest conventions you could ever think of. Think of anime, video games, different bands, different They've got tattoo artists. It's this huge convention in this hotel up in DC. And, it's like so imagine Comic-Con. You hear about Comic-Con, it's all about comics. Well, imagine that, but then so much more video games and anime and all this other just nerdy stuff, I'm making a plan to go to that with a couple friends of mine. We were going to go up there that Saturday, enjoy ourselves, probably stay over somewhere up near DC that Saturday night, and then go Sunday. It's when you buy a ticket, you get a weekend pass. So we figure we're not going Friday because we have work. And if we're going to go Saturday, if we're just going to drive up and then come right back down, we're sure it would probably still be fun, but we want to make the most of our money. So why not just find a place to stay and then go again? It's a 24-hour event, meaning, you can go in there and you can actually, if you could stay up all night, you could go in there Saturday and stay all the way up and enjoy everything until Sunday. They have panels there. It's going to be voice actors from anime, from video games, from, you name it. Like I said, there's tattoo artists that will be doing, they don't do any tattooing at the show, which I asked about because I thought, that'd be sweet to get like my first tattoo, get it at a con, get a little tiny something or something that's, like less than $50 or $50 to it, just for the memory, right? But they don't do the tattoos there. They just show off their work. They show like, here's the pictures and the drawings and the designs I've done throughout the years. And if you want something done, now you can find me and you can see how good my work is. Stuff like that. They've got like, I think like 50 to 100 vendors that are going to be there for just selling little knickknacks and stuff, Remember that one movie you saw that one time? Well, guess what? Here's a little collectible figure from it, $5 or $10 or whatever. That kind of stuff, convention, you just go there and you just kind of nerd out and enjoy yourselves. That is what I'm going to be doing, and I'm really excited for that. However, it does mean that we will be missing that episode that morning. My friends joked about actually doing an STM at the convention, which would be amazing, but it would require me bringing my DSLR with me and probably trying to bring some kind of microphone that is not as bad as the DSLR microphone. Honestly, with all of the work it would take to do a show at the actual convention, I think I would start to not enjoy the actual convention itself. And that's the whole point I'm going. So I think what I might do is take a few videos on my phone, and then when we figure out so the following week we will have an episode. I will have those videos, or at least the clips or whatever, as long as they're not absolute shit. I will bring them onto the show. I will probably play them as a video. That way people who watch the video feed, either in the morning or later on YouTube, can enjoy anything that I found when I was at the convention. And I don't know when I'll play them. I either maybe play them in the middle of the show, maybe play them at the end. That way, if anyone listening who doesn't want to listen to my adventures at the con can, turn off the show and not have to listen to the rest of it. But we'll figure that out. That weekend, I am still trying to figure out what we'll do for the show. Maybe we will have a Friday night show. I've offered that up as an idea to Mr. De Palma and Mr. Bass. We will have to see what we can do about that. If not, maybe I'll do another quick one-off, like a pre-con show. Come on and tell all the events that, we'll be doing, what my plan is for what I want to do, and all these things that I'm going to enjoy. And I'm excited, man. Live bands and just everything. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. But we will figure out what to do about that show. Even if we have to do one middle of the week before or middle of the week after. Like I said, even if I have to do a quick show myself, we will get it because we have to keep our numbers. Trying to hit number 50. So we will see how that goes. Alrighty, well, I've got a little bit of news here, and we will burn through this. That way we can get to Ross and figuring out this great topic that it seems like he's got. Which actually, you know what, surprisingly, I believe will be pretty fruitful with myself. I'm not even going to say anymore, but here we go. I have a sound clip for this.
404 found.
Alrighty, well, with today's news, basically, so you notice I didn't play a clip at the end of the show. Guess what? I also don't have music today, and I'm not really bringing anything major as far as articles either. Today's just a little quick sideshow. Maybe not even quick. It seems we're rolling quite well on time right now. But I don't want a show to feel like a normal show without Tony, or with, if he's a co-host. So when he takes a day off, or when he's not here for, whatever other reason, I want to make sure that the show does feel different, whether it's for better or for worse. It's just going to be basically STM Light. Might last as long, but the content may not be as deep. So instead, I'm going to notify you of some of the coming things up on Netflix, because not a lot of people keep in tune with some of the new things that are coming out, and I also have not seen these things myself. Let's see here. All right, TV shows. Some more TV shows coming up to Netflix for February. It says all 4 seasons of Spartacus will be streaming, as well as MASH seasons 1 through 5. Now, MASH is something I've never seen, but something I've always wanted to see. I've heard good things about it. Mixture of comedy and drama. Has not been something I've seen, so I would be interested in watching that as well. Live action Richie Rich series. Who knows how well that's going to be? I mean, because we're at the moment now where we're making tons of TV shows about movies that no one really, everyone kind of forgot about. So hopefully they're as good as what it says. Looks like 2 anime films as well: Naruto Shippuden, the movie, and Bleach, the movie, Hellverse. Let's see, Dark Ride is a film that looks like a horror film. Departure, season 1 and 2, whatever that is. Give Me Shelter, and Gucci, the director, whatever that is. Highlighted here is Hot Pursuit from 1987. Looks like it has John Cusack. Let's see. Houseboat, Into the Blue, Joe, King Arthur, Joe. Magic City, whatever that might be. Again, we said MASH. The Brothers Bloom from 2008. It looks like it's got Mark Ruffalo, Adrian Brody. We said Naruto. Spartacus, if you're into brutal action TV series. Let's see. What else is this? Okay, we've got some other things here. Is there anything else really worth watching? I'm trying to see. This all just looks like drivel now. I think I've mentioned all of the exciting things. There's plenty more coming. RoboCop, the 2014 version. I don't think that was very good, though. It looks like a Russell Brand series. It also looks like House of Cards 3 coming up, too. At least House of Cards Season 3. So that's exciting if you're watching Netflix. If you are my parents and you own Netflix, you should be watching... I can't even remember the name of the show. Parks and Recreation. Go watch it right now. If you're listening to the show and you're watching and you're not watching Parks and Rec, go watch Parks and Rec. It is really funny. I'm going to keep reminding them until they actually watch it and tell me how hilarious it is. It's my own form of dictatorship. Okay, this other article I've got here is actually a little more, what's the word? Exciting, maybe. It's not just me reading off a bunch of movie titles that are coming on to a streaming service. Dragon Age, popular video game series, earned special recognition from the GLAAD. Now, I don't know if that's supposed to be the GLAAD, or how we're supposed to pronounce that. I'm not even sure. It doesn't tell me in the article here what it stands for. I know what the organization is, but let's find out what it stands for. Okay, so it was formerly called the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. And I guess they just made it an acronym now. Okay, cool. Anyways, Dragon Age Inquisition, which is the brand new, the newest game that came out, has been recognized by media advocacy organization GLAAD, that's what I want to call it, for its portrayal of LGBT characters. earning GLAAD's Special Recognition Award. GLAAD cites Dragon Age Inquisition's many complex and unique LGBT characters prominently integrated throughout the game as the reason for its inclusion in the 26th annual GLAAD Media Awards, according to the statement released yesterday. The Special Recognition Award is reserved for outstanding media projects for which there is no competitive category. For which there is not a competitive category. Video games do not have their own category in the GLAAD's annual awards. Which is impressive, because that means it beats out everything else. And, not just video game, like, it's not the video game category. It literally was, nope, that is the best representation. Or, that is at least what gets the Special Recognition Award. For nearly 30 years, the GLAAD Media Awards have raised the bar for inclusion in news and entertainment, transforming LGBT representation in media and moving the dial for acceptance across the globe. GLAAD President and CEO Sarah Kate Ellis said, "It's a remarkable year for equality, and nowhere is that more evident than the visibility LGBT people have gained across media." Dragon Age Inquisition won IGN's Best Overall Game for 2014 and was praised for fully realized people and places, as well as its elaborate, nuanced issues of race, faith, gender, and sexuality. The epic... let's see... it says here the 26th Annual GLAAD Media Awards will be held in Los Angeles on March 21st and New York on May 9th. I have played Dragon Age Inquisition, and it is a phenomenal game. It truly... And, the first Dragon Age was really good as well. The writers behind BioWare are really impressive with the things that they do, and Inquisition was no... Inquisition might have trumped the entire rest of the series. Dragon Age, the first one, was one of my favorite games for the longest time. Years and years and years. Inquisition might be better than the first one, just because of its depth and where it goes with the things that it has to say. And they've never been afraid to show sexual equality, I guess. I don't know what I could use there as a descriptor, but I'm brought to mind an incident where a fan had complained about the second Dragon Age game, where the player character was forced to confront another character that was not being played by any characters. It's what they call a NPC, a non-playable character. It's basically run by the script in the game. Was confronted by a gay party member who, tried to hit on the character, and you can say yes, you can say no, whatever. And some players, I guess, felt that was an invasion. If I'm straight, I don't want no gay party member hitting on me, that kind of thing. And, it's the guy who writes the entire series, the guy actually who runs BioWare, responded back and basically said, with these games, we try to present things, it's in a fantasy environment, but we try to present them with real human reactions and emotions. And, you can't always dictate whether a gay man or a gay woman is going to come up and hit on you, or whether it's a friend of yours or a coworker or something or whatever. And basically told the guy that if you can't handle dealing with this, if you're so homophobic that you can't, tell a video game character that you're not into him or whatever, whatever the deal is, then don't play the games, because it was a really empowering. I'm really butchering what he said. There's a big letter of it online because he went into detail, and basically said, no, I stand behind the decision to present this character to the player, because in most games, if there's a romance option, okay, because these games try to basically get you into it. So what do they do? They allow you to romance certain characters, and usually it's very optional. If you don't want to do it, if you don't want to romance anybody, then you're never going to experience any of that, which is fine because some people don't like to do that. But this was one of the first cases where a non-player character initiated an attempt at romancing, and a lot of people were off put by it. I'm sure the amount of people that were off put by it pales in comparison to the amount of people who didn't care. I was one of the people that didn't care. Honestly, when that situation came up in the game, my biggest concern was how do I tell this guy that I'm not interested in him and still stay friends with him, And when you get in that kind of interaction, that's no different from a regular, everyday thing that you could deal with. I have dealt with gay friends coming on to me, and stuff that, just over the years, and they talk to you, and when you have that interaction, it was the same thing that I felt in the game. How do I say that this is not what I'm interested in, but I still want your friendship, and for them to present that in the game was such an incredible thing. It's such an incredible way to emulate something that you can't normally do, by telling a story. It can only be done in an interactive thing like a game here. It was really impressive. Anyways, David Gator's the guy who writes the Dragon Age games and is, I believe, one of the lead guys behind BioWare itself. But I'm always impressed with their work, and especially with their progressive nature of including, all sides of everything, as it said here, with whether it was about faith or sexuality or about race. Those are all very deep and important topics in the Dragon Age series, and we won't talk about games much longer because I already talked about Yakuza quite a bit, but Dragon Age is very impressive for it, and I like coming away from it. Games are fun. They're great. It's good to sit down and, like I said, beat the shit out of some gangsters and have a good time, but it's also very rare but very rewarding to come away from a game having, actually taken something away from it, to say, that it's all simulated, it's the same as watching a movie and coming away going, damn, I feel differently about this thing, or, having seen these other people experience this thing, but, it's in an inactive environment, it almost gets so much deeper, and it's impressive. Kudos to BioWare for getting recognized for some of their work. I'm going to read a few of these goofy-ass news articles I normally do. I think I will just read one or two of them, and then we will bump right on over to Ross.
This just in other news.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to read the last two. I'm going to go ahead and read the titles of the first two. The first one was Judge Rules Man Can't Be Fined for Peeing Standing Up. Is about a tenant, I believe in Germany, who is losing some of his, or most of his deposit because supposedly flecks of urine ruined the marble floor beneath the toilet, and the landlord tried to say that because the man would stand up to urinate, that was reason enough to be fined. The second one was about a teen who posed as a gynecologist for months. Basically went in and put on a doctor's coat, acted very confidently, and no one ever knew that he was not an actual doctor. So yeah, I'll let you guys figure those ones out. This one's not really any particular weird in the normal sense, but let me see here. The U.S. Air Force releases its UFO case files into a public database. So first off, when you talk about UFOs, that doesn't always mean aliens. UFOs are unidentified flying objects. It could have been a frisbee that someone threw up there, and it just whatever it was, it just was crazy. You get Hulk Hogan who's just, and he throws it, and they're like, "Holy shit! I can't identify that. That's an unidentified flying object." So while you're thinking to yourself, "Okay, these are all alien stories," well, no, it's just things that couldn't have been identified. Whether or not they were aliens depends on how much you actually believe in extraterrestrials. The U.S. Air Force has released 130,000 declassified UFO documents, which is now available online for public perusal. The release comes after the dodged pursuit of extraterrestrial enthusiast John Greenwald. For 20 years, he submitted numerous Freedom of Information Act requests to get the files from the government, known as the Project Blue Book. Quote, "There has been absolutely something out there," Greenwald told ABC News. "The big question mark is, have they come here?" Greenwald organized and posted the documents in an online database known as the Black Vault, where users can search by year or by keyword. The documents contain information about reported sightings and blurry photographs. Greenwald believes the documents prove there is a government cover-up of extraterrestrial activity on the planet. I'm not going to dive too deep into this. I'm just going to say it straight up front. I do believe in extraterrestrial life. Whether or not I believe it's already been here, who really knows? Our universe is way too big for there just to be humans. I feel like for us to be like, oh, here's the Earth and we're just in a perfect condition for humans, that could never happen anywhere else, is a little selfish to say. So whether or not we've actually got aliens in our solar system versus any other system versus whatever, I do think that extraterrestrials exist somewhere. How far away or whatever, no clue. Don't know, whatever. Now, what's interesting is that it seems to be, this order for transparency seems to be more and more a common thing. I think it was 2011, Canada released their quote-unquote X-Files. They legitimately called them X-Files, and it was just any case that they couldn't solve. I read a couple of them. They were really interesting things that you read and you're like, damn, that sounds like it's about aliens. And then, but you never know because it was never solved. And, but legitimate, government files were just really interesting things. Specifically, I always bring this up whenever anyone wants to talk about extraterrestrials. And I could be crazy. I try not to sort of preach the extraterrestrial thing because I don't know. I think that there's something out there somewhere, but whether or not they're here, whether or not they're, whatever, who knows? I risk losing all my fan base for the podcast divulging that I want to believe in extraterrestrial life. But there's a video I saw in 2012 of the ex-prime minister, not prime minister, but the ex-minister of defense for Canada, and I don't remember if it was Parliament or whatever it's called, but it was their version of the Supreme Court, and he had called a meeting, and it's online. It's like 26 minutes long, and it is him revealing information and saying that in his time as the Minister of Defense, the guy who controls all of basically your things coming in the border, going out for Canada, military, whatever, the Minister of Defense, is saying, I've been in contact with people with this, that, and the other, and, I don't know if he ever made a claim to see an extraterrestrial, but, basically said that he had seen documents, he had seen all these other things between Canada and the U.S. to lay claim that the United States had been working with extraterrestrials for at least 50 years, and that they had been here, that they're down here disguised as humans, and all this other kind of crap, and really interesting stuff, because, you hear it from a guy like this dude that was trying to get it released here. What was his name? Frickin' John somebody? John Greenwald. You hear about a guy named John Greenwald, and you're like, well, that dude's a kook. And I'm going to think the same thing. That guy's crazy, because he's just a dude, and he wants to believe. He saw way too many X-Files episodes. Not going to listen to that guy. And very well could be the same thing about the Minister of Defense. Maybe that dude is crazy. Maybe that's why he's the ex-minister of defense, because he's crazy. But the guy has some sort of, he's got clearance in a lot of different ways that other people wouldn't have had. He's got, he's in a position of power, and for him, he comes up and he talks in this Supreme Court-ish meeting, and he's shaking. He's like holding his book and he's stuttering. He can't like get it out. He's visibly nervous as all hell. And probably because he thought he was going to be assassinated in a week, if any of what he said was true. Because if it was, he's revealing. And basically his meeting was to say there needs to be a transparency between the government and its people about what they have been doing with extraterrestrials. And basically just made the entire claim. No one else talked. It was just the one guy. He basically called to have 26 minutes of him saying, here is a bunch of proof that I have. We have been in contact with extraterrestrials, and the U.S. government and the Canadian government need to divulge to the people the truth. And Really interesting stuff. Of course, to someone like me who wants to believe that there's extraterrestrial life out there, I'm eating that shit up. And I'm like, all right, of course this guy's telling the truth, But who really knows? We're never going to know. Because the thing is if the government's hiding something like that, they ain't going to tell you. The government's hiding a lot of things from you, I mean, we had crazier stuff happen when it was much easier to know that crazier stuff was happening. Like, the government hiding things is not a new thing. That's what governments do. Anyways, we'll move on to the next one here before I continue to speak of my conspiracy theories. 5-year-old boy is billed for skipping his friend's birthday party. Can say that this never actually happened to me, but Alex Nash, a 5-year-old from Cornwall, England, has been billed for skipping a classmate's birthday party at the ski slope and snowboard center in Plymouth last month. Alex's father told Plymouth Herald on Monday that his son came home with a $24 invoice last week. It had been passed on to him by Julie Lawrence, the mother of the classmate whose birthday, he missed. Quote, I thought it was a big joke to begin with. I am at a loss for words. Derek said Alex had agreed to go to the party, but remembered too late that his son had made plans to spend the day with his grandparents. He said he didn't have any way to contact the Lawrence family. Lawrence told BBC News that Alex and his family had her contact information. All details were on the party invite. They had every detail they needed to contact me. That was a quote from her. Derek told Lawrence that he refused to pay the bill because of the way Lawrence broached the issue. Quote, I told her that she should have spoken to me first and not put the invoice in my son's school bag. I would have sympathized with her, but about the cost of Alex not showing up, but I just can't believe the way she has gone around it. Derek said Lawrence threatened to take him to small claims court, though Derek's partner is attempting to mediate the dispute. I read another article on this stuff. It's pretty crazy. Dude doesn't show up, so they have an extra seat at the party, and that didn't get paid for. So they bill the son, and they don't. I don't know. It's weird stuff. Parents being stuck up is what it sounds like to me. You're going to bill your son for a $25 slot? Yeah, that sucks. Talk to the parent. You really think sending home an invoice is going to start off things well? And she's going to be like, well, he had my information. He could have called me. Yeah, you had his information. You could have called him. Said, hey, that's $25, homie. You don't have to make an invoice for it. Whatever. I'm not a parent, so I don't know. All right, well, we're going to get Ross on this. We're going to get Ross on this, bitch. Let's call him in here. Of course, I'm speaking of the female dog, so that is not an offensive use of the word. This show is also PG-13, minus the F-bomb allowage. Video call. Of course, I'm going to have to change how I look here now in the video. Oops, disappeared. Hold on. I'm going to play the Karmafied thing.
Ross is, distinguished, got his big old beard.
It's not going to be easy, but it will be worth it.
There's amazing things going on every day.
I may not be good, but I'm expensive.
It's Ross and I, and then a bunch of women. Don't let society tell you what to do. He has the power.
Brody.
Hello, Ross Bays.
Yo!
How's it going, man?
It's going well. Got my coffee. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready to take a drink of mine as well. I've been talking for way too long now. Anyways, welcome to the show. Interesting vibe today. It looks like you're killing it on our next Karmafied topic. I'm excited. You have a lot to what's the word? You have a lot to talk about.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'll tell you, I had a topic last night that I was pondering and going over, and I felt like I was a good one. And then for some reason I got up this morning and I happened to come across something on the internet that grabbed my attention and just started crushing it in the show notes. So we'll see where it goes. And it's something that I can't say it's like it's near and dear to my heart, but I think it's, as Karmafied always goes, it's a matter of getting people to think outside the box and getting to educate people a little bit, and not be confined to what cultures or society says this, and this. So,
indeed, I with this one in particular, I'm excited because I'm not your usual dude when it comes to this. I think I'm perfect material for this one.
Yeah, and I thought that would be good. so what I came across this morning was a picture that somebody had posted, and I did the research in the backup to find out that it was legit. There was a woman named Nora Vincent, who was a feminist writer, who once disguised herself as a man for 18 months so that she could write a book about gender. And according to her in the book, she says that men are suffering. She says they have different problems than women have, but they don't necessarily have it better. Now, we're not talking about, like, maybe men have it better in this regard, but women have it better in this regard. Like, there's a whole bunch of ways that we're not necessarily equal, but, we're not talking about civil rights and human rights. We're talking about just generally that we're different. So after the experiment, she ended up being institutionalized for depression because she'd been messing with her identity for so long that it totally threw her off. So the constant fear of being discovered by somebody, the deceit from lying to people that she cared about. She ended up writing a book. The book is on Amazon if anybody's interested. It's called Self-Made Man, One Woman's Year Disguised as a Man. So this is what grabbed my attention. And I wanted to discuss it because, me in my industry, and I talk about this a lot on the show, is me in my industry, I come from a very alpha-oriented industry where it's all guns and beer and
Right.
So I know how it is. So today we talk about the crying man. And you know how it is. Like, as a guy, as a man, you have to be tough. You have to be strong. I don't care. I'll do whatever the F I want. And and that's just what it is. That's part of the stereotype of being a man, part of the culture. And I'll tell you, the last time on this topic, the last time that I cried, so ridiculous. I was watching The Biggest Loser.
Okay.
And there was an episode where, and the Biggest Loser is always the same. If you've ever seen the show, they take the people, they bring them to the ranch, and then they sit them down all together, and then they start going through their individual stories as far as who they are and why they're there and what made them fat. Okay. So everybody has a story, and it's not like, I just love food too much. Right. It's always like there's something going on in their head. There's something that they're dealing with. They're eating their feelings, that kind of stuff. Well, this one woman, this was probably a couple years ago, I think. This one woman was telling her story, and she was saying, like, she started off by introducing herself, and then she said, I have a husband, and I have a 4-year-old son, and I have a 1-year-old son, and she named him, and she described them, he's blonde with big blue eyes and whatever. And then she said, and 2 years ago, I lost all of them in a car accident. And she went on to talk about how she was supposed to be with them in the car, which she would have preferred, but she ended up not making the trip to go with them, and they got into a car accident, and all 3 were killed. So when she started telling the story, I lost it. I mean, I'm an empathetic guy, and when she started talking about it, I went nuts. I mean, and I don't mean like, oh man, that guy, I mean like, like a cartoon. So that was the last time that my emotions got the best of me. What about you? Let me extend the question to you. When was the last time that you cried?
I'm trying to think of, like the last time that I really, really got sad. It's almost always with a movie.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if I can remember a specific time. I'll tell you that it's really easy it's easy enough to make me sort of feel that welling up, like you get that lump in your throat kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even when I'm watching Parks and Rec, like when it'll hit like a serious moment, and it's so touching to me, like the human interaction there, whether it's like showing Ron that you can actually be, empathetic or whatever. And I'm like, damn, like that's real, man. Like that's a real thing. That's an issue that people are dealing with. And in between the comedy, it's the same thing with Scrubs. Scrubs would always do the same thing to me too. It's just comedy. Oh shit, this is sad. And,
bam.
I'm trying to think of the last time that I, like genuinely really lost it, but I don't know if I can remember specifically, but that's mostly because a lot of things can get to me that way. If I'm watching a movie and or even a TV show, I don't know how many games have actually made me sad. I know that there's been a couple that have been close to tearing me up. but usually it's a show or a movie, and it's usually pretty easy. I don't necessarily bawl my eyes out as much, but I make up for it by having little moments of like almost crying, like lots of them, like easily, a couple times a week. I'm like, oh God, like, hurry up and finish. This is sad. Oh,
I thought you'd get it. So now that's, I mean, if you're watching a movie, I mean, it's different. Maybe if you're in the theater because it's dark and nobody's really like looking at you, you're not sharing a moment with anybody. But can you remember the last time that you cried in public or with somebody that you wouldn't necessarily say, "Hey, dude, I'm gonna have a good cry. Hold on."
How public does it have to be again?
I mean, even if it's just with, I don't know, like
with anybody?
Somebody that you know that's not necessarily like a best friend. Like it would almost be awkward that you're crying in front of them.
I don't know. I can remember the last time that I remember like. Well, I guess I can remember one time when I was kind of lost it, but and it was around somebody. It was around my roommate though. It was back in 2012. But I'm sure I've cried since. I just don't know.
Maybe just not in public.
Yeah. I mean, even when I watch movies and stuff, it's all a very like intimate experience for me. I actually don't like watching movies with people very much, and it has nothing to do with I might cry in this one. I better not watch it with another person. It's more just like, well, if I really want to get into this, I don't want any outside distractions. I don't even want someone sitting next to me on the freaking thing. So, cried in public. What really sad things would have happened? I don't have a clue. I'm
Nothing
sorry.
there?
Yeah. My examples are awful. I can tell you all about the times I've wanted to cry, but I couldn't tell you the last times that I cried.
I mean, the last time that, the last one that I remember being the biggest one, which I tell people was one of the hardest things I've had to face, was I lost one of my closest friends in Iraq, and I had to go to his funeral. He was a Marine, and going to his funeral, we had to drive out to Tennessee, and kind of on the spot, his wife asked me to do the eulogy. It was like literally on the spot. And that was brutal.
Yeah.
But what got me was we were, I'm with all my Marine friends that were there. We served together. And, it was kind of strange when we first got there because you see all your buddies and it's a funeral for a close friend of everybody. But because you haven't seen each other in a while, everybody's hugging and laughing and blah, blah, blah. But then when the service starts going, it being a Marine's funeral, you have the 21 gun salute and you have the bugle playing taps, and that's what got me. You have all these big, tough Marines that, we are macho and all the bravado and everything else, but then tap starts playing, and everybody just gone, lost it. And I remember a whole bunch of things about that day, but I remember just trying to hold it together and trying to be strong, trying to be tough. And my wife was there with me, and all my buddies were there with me. And people were crying. It wasn't like it wasn't acceptable, but it was just something inside me that said, "Okay, chill out, relax a little bit. It's it's not going to bring him back." But that was one of the times that I remember just being surrounded by a couple hundred people, and it just didn't matter. It was just coming out no matter what.
Right.
I mean, that's a funeral, though. That's understandable.
Yeah, no, definitely. Funeral seems to be the sort of the place to be acceptable. The fact that I'm even saying that there's acceptable places to
it's kind of
show emotion.
Part of the point. I'll tell you one time that was not acceptable was I used to work with a guy, and we'll call him Dave, I suppose. But Dave is a man's man. And I mean, we're talking like, cage fighter and, all the man's man. It's cut tattoos, hair's always a mess,
right.
Man's man. And there was a lot of tension between us at work. I can't remember why, but all of a sudden there was just this hostility between the two of us. And I'm a pretty easygoing guy. Nothing bothers me.
Yeah.
But somehow he got this hair in his butt for me, and there was just this tension. We were butting heads all the time. And then one day my wife got sick with something that we still did. Well, I guess we kind of got an answer, but she got sick to the point where I brought her to the ER and she couldn't move.
Boy.
She was healthy, but if you touched her, she screamed in pain, and she couldn't move her limbs. Like, it was terrifying.
Dang, that would, dude.
Yeah.
That sounds
and,
awful.
I remember being at the ER at 2 a.m. She's laying on one of the beds. They did a spinal tap on her, and I remember calling my friend and kind of just venting a little bit, and I was really scared. And the next day, I went to work after all was said and done, and she came home. Everything was fine. They gave her some stuff, and everything was good. But I went and I approached Dave, and I said, "Look, bro, I don't know what's been going on between us, but I just don't care. I don't care. If I did something, I'm sorry that I did something or said something, whatever you did. I don't care. It just doesn't matter to me. Annie, like I thought I was going to lose my wife last night,
right.
And it kind of put things into perspective for me. And right there in front of him, as soon as I said that, oh God, it was horrible. And he actually reached out and kind of gave me like a, man
right.
hug.
Yeah.
And I tried to grab him, but he just pushed me away. It was so embarrassing.
Oh, man.
Yeah, just not cool sometimes. That was one of those moments that I was like, I wish I hadn't done that.
It's, I don't know. When you're empathetic, and you definitely are. You're an empathetic guy. I would consider myself also empathetic. It can be difficult to, I don't know, like sometimes it's almost too easy to sort of get caught up by it, like I said, like sometimes when I'll be explaining, the plot to a movie, or let's say even like when I was explaining like the Metal Gear Solid to you. Mm-hmm. The end, like the ending of Metal Gear Solid 3 makes me want to cry every time because of how tragic it is, because it's just ideas, it's not that, oh, your favorite character just died. No, it's literally them talking and you realizing like, oh shit, like this is how things are. And that's what gets me a lot, when I realize the reality of something, when I realize that, ooh, that guy's relationship with his father is not good. Or, and that's what it is in movies. Like I said, rarely is it like, oh, there's a character you love, boom, he's dead, now you can cry. It's realizations of, oh, this is much deeper than, it's much deeper than it appears. And these people are trying to be human, but they have these issues, they have these reservations that they can't be, whether it's the guy who's acting too tough or this other person who feels that they can't, it's just, I don't know. That's where it really gets me, for me, is usually a realization of something much deeper, it's realizing that it's not as clear cut as you think it is, and that this person really is struggling. But, which, I'll tell you, one of the saddest moments I've ever seen on a television show was, in Scrubs. And I'll try not to get choked up while explaining it, because it's really sad. But they have Michael J. Fox on the series, and he comes on for a couple episodes, and he has severe OCD in the episodes, not in real life, at least not that I know of. And he comes on and he's a surgeon, and he's the first couple episodes are all just comedy based, obviously, and Scrubs formula is, like I said, funny, a boom, bomb dropped. Everything is sad on the last few moments of the episode. And so, they don't do anything sad with him until basically when he's just about ready to leave the show. And JD comes and walks in down on him, and there was a surgery, and JD, who's the main character of the show, has already kind of done his thing, but he forgot his shirt or something, forgot his shoes. And so he's walking back down to his locker, and he noticed Michael J. Fox is sitting there still washing his hands at the sink, and he's washing them. And JD gets his stuff. He's like, "Oh, you're still here?" And takes his stuff. And he's like, "Do you want me to shut off the light?" And he's like, "No, I'll probably be here for another hour." And JD's like, "What?" And then he explains to him, that he's like, "My OCD is so severe that I cannot stop washing my hands because I think that there's germs on them." He goes, "I know that there's not. I know that there's nothing here, but it's so like it affects me to a point where I can't control it." And he's like, I've been here for the last 45 minutes washing my goddamn hands. And, he's an actor, he's portraying something, but then you realize that is a thing for people, that they are affected by that. And it's moments like that. It's choking me up now. It's moments like that where you realize that is a real thing, it's portraying something that maybe Michael J. Fox is not dealing with. Maybe JD's not dealing with it. Maybe no one is dealing with it. But someone is dealing with it and is almost like a debilitating thing. And it's moments in that and shows and TV shows and movies and games even when they present to you a human thing that people have to deal with. And you're like... Yeah. You haven't experienced it before because you don't have that, you don't have OCD. So then you're like, oh shit, there's a glimpse into what this really does to people. And it's, that's where I get choked up is during those moments. But anyways, kind of off topic here.
No, not at all. I mean, that's a perfect example because really it's, if you think about the context of it, it's a TV show that was written just to entertain you and to do this and do that. But even though it's scripted and it's not real, the message that they're trying to portray is real. And you're right. Somebody out there is dealing with it. Somebody watching the show is dealing with it. And you never know what that simple bit inside that show, maybe it helps somebody. Or maybe it's just for people like us where it's a level of awareness that you weren't aware of, that people live that way. So we find ourselves being empathetic and then crying, and we're not sure if we should or not. This is just a TV show. It's Scrubs. It's funny. Why am I crying? But, what we think a lot of times as men is the public opinion that men can't cry. So this morning I stumbled across this forum on this website called girlsaskguys.com. And it's basically a place where a guy can ask a question and then girls answer it. And then a girl can ask a question and vice versa. So this guy asks a question. It says, "I think that men who cry are weak, pathetic, and should be ashamed for doing so. Do you agree?" And the first, then he went on to explain a little bit more, and he said, "Men are supposed to be strong and never cry no matter what. Not even when someone close to them dies. They can be sad, but not cry. Crying is just going too far. Crying should stop when you are 12, 13 years old. Men who cry are pansies. They should suck it up, man up, and set an example for younger boys. Real men are not emotional." And one of the first responses, one of the rated highest responses was, humans feel emotion. Why should men have to live their lives as if they don't care about anything? And that's kind of a good point. Like if we talk about the fact that people are equal, they should be treated as equal. If I have to treat a man this way, I treat a woman this way, they should be treated as equals. I know that we can say, well, if that's the case, then if you punch a man in the face, then you should punch a woman in the face. We could go any direction with that. But for the sake of this, we keep it simple.
Sure.
I wanted to look at, first of all, why is it different for a man? Why is being a man's man the way it is in our culture? So science tells us that genetically men are stronger. We're faster. We have a higher rate of basal metabolism than women. We're 50% stronger in brute strength than women. And if we look at that for what it is, as DNA and muscular framework and things like that, the evolutionary purpose gives us that we were hunters. We hunted for our families back in the day on just a primal level. We were protectors. And because of the fact that we're built the way that we're built, that's the purpose that we served. So think about that on a primal level and extrapolate that to now. We're talking thousands and thousands, maybe even millions of years. This is why we are tough and strong. We have to fulfill that responsibility for our families or for our tribes or our clans. And, we have guys today like Dave that I mentioned in the previous example.
Right.
That's, he's a man's man. He's got tattoos and he's a cage fighter. But now take the man's man of today and compare him to the medieval times when you had knights and you had, William Wallace and dudes that when in combat were ripping arms off and cutting off heads with swords and broadswords and things like. So we have two different levels. So maybe it's time to evolve a little bit and say that a real man's man isn't necessarily someone that comes and chops off heads with a sword and has to get in a fight because he saw you looking from across the bar with an awkward look or however you can put it. Which is the world that we live in now.
I know. It's what kills me is it's so funny. It's so... Oh, it kills me that, and I don't know, call me passive. Call me passive to the fact that, like, if someone insults me, that I don't immediately have to fight them for my quote-unquote honor. It's right. I don't know. It's really, I mean, I've had conversations with people where I legitimately have been like, do you have to get back at that guy? There's no reason.
Right. I've had change anything.
Yeah, like, you don't have to. You could just leave it be. Just talk nicely to the guy, because if someone pisses me off, what do? I try to be as nice to them as possible so that they'll be like, oh shit,
maybe I'm going too far.
Right. And then there's times where I do snap and I have to become a man, but that's my superpower, by the way, is I turn man time and I just no, but I don't know. It kills me. And it kills me to be around people like that. And luckily, I don't know too many people, but it's because I don't know a lot of people to begin with. But I don't know a lot of people that are super macho. But it always, I don't know, that whole like just turn on a dime because someone accidentally sneezed at me is like it's so brutal.
Yeah, and I started to kind of think, okay, well, if we study, if we think about why people are crying, like what's happening, why is this actually part of who we are? We have doctors that tell us, for instance, a neuropsychologist at Tampa General Hospital, Dr. Jody DeLuca, says when you cry, it's actually a signal that you need to address something. Crying may also have a biochemical purpose where it's believed to release stress hormones or toxins from the body. And there's a whole bunch of examples of doctors that study these kinds of things, not just like, small stuff. People that have spent years and years and years studying this stuff on a biological level as far as why people cry, what's happening and why the body needs to do that and what its purpose is. But what they've seen through studies is that people that suppress those feelings, it actually shows up later on or shows up in different ways where it results in depression or it results in anger management or rage problems. So suppressing one emotion may suppress that emotion, but it may cause 5 more to come out in the worst possible way, where instead of crying because you watched The Notebook,
right,
you end up punching a girlfriend in the face, because she put the forks in the dishwasher upside down. So suppression is not good. And I tell you, we make jokes about it and we laugh about it. Hey, dude, what are you being a pansy for? What are you crying for, dude? It's, whatever. Be a man up. But because of our culture and because of the fact that men are told to be tough and to play with guns and play with knives and be violent when you need to be, what that results in is that we are not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to be sad or show the slightest bit of vulnerability because it means that we're not tough, because we can't protect our families and everything else. Growing up in this country, you already know that when we grow up, we were taught you play with guns, you practice karate, you fight, and that's what you do. Girls have dolls and they cook, and boys play with guns. And we can all relate to that. That's how we grew up. But the problem, though, is that now we are getting more intelligent and we are starting to learn more about science and about biology and the chemicals within our body. We're seeing that there could very well be a correlation between the fact that this is how men grow up from the time that they're boys, and the fact that for many years now, the suicide rate has been about 4 times higher among men than women. 2012, 78.3% of suicides were male and 21.7% were female. And I mean, you can go further and say that in the U.S. alone in 2012, whites had the highest suicide rate, and then right under them were American Indians. So Men
That's awful.
have their own issues, you know. I mean, and if the core of that is just that we're suppressing our emotions, and maybe it's a pretty simple fix. I mean, maybe it's not, but having talks like this and actually like kind of trying to figure out, well, why can't I cry? Let me watch The Notebook and let me cry. Let me watch Tom and Jerry and have a good tear. But if anything, it's something that needs to be addressed in some way.
Yeah, I agree. It's I don't know. I mean, that's usually one of the first things I mention anymore is that it's easy to make me cry because I want people to know straight up front that if I'm going to be talking about games, I'm going to be talking about TV shows, I'm going to be talking about movies, I'm going to cry probably at all of them, and you need to know because that's what I do. I mean, it's. Oh, I remember this was a funny time actually. Sort of. I remember there's a part in. Did you ever see The Lake House with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock? I guess I won't go into detail in case no one else has seen it, but there's a portion in that's particularly very sad, and Keanu Reeves starts crying. And I was at the time I was in the theater. I was dating. Oh, it must have been maybe 15 or 16. I was dating this chick. I was like one of my first girlfriends, but and I remember just like the shaking kind of crying, losing it, like the like, and I was so sad. And she was like, "Well, come here," and like took my head, you know, and it was like kind of. She's like, "It's okay," and kind of like smiling and laughing because I was the only one in the theater crying because Keanu Reeves was crying on screen. Oh, and it was so. Oh man, it was so funny. That was one of probably the funniest times that I've ever cried. It was just so stupid because I was the only one apparently losing it in the theater, the only one who thought that movie was sad. And it's the sad part. I still don't understand, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't have an issue. I kind of used to have an issue saying it, you know, to say like, I mean, it would have been, I don't know, 10 years ago and a couple years after that. The sort of like, oh yeah, I guess I did cry at that movie. It was kind of like, oh, okay, you know, like I didn't want to let everybody know. But then eventually I got to a point where I was like, okay, it is easy for me to cry because I am incredibly empathetic because I feel it, you know? That is what you're supposed to be doing when you're watching. Well, like I said, movies and all that kind of stuff is very intimate to me anyways. So I'm like really getting into it. And so when they feel it, I'm like, oh, and I think about how it feels, and that's what makes me cry. Mm-hmm. And at some point I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to hide the fact that I cry as much as I do. So I'm just going to start saying it up front. Hey, nice to meet you. My name's Jake. I cry. So, and I mean, that's genuinely what I do. Anytime we talk about movies, like right before, you know, we'll talk about a sad movie, or a movie that I know is particularly sad. I'll be like, yeah, by the way, it's like super easy to cry, but I cried through most of that movie. Oh my God. I do remember the last time I lost it like crazy. I do. Oh, thank God. It was a movie. Now, have you ever seen, and people, if you've actually seen this, will probably might laugh at this one. Have you ever seen Lars and the Real Girl? Mm-mm. Okay, that is what's his name? He's in Drive. He's in Notebook. Ryan Gosling. He is in that film as someone with an incredibly deep level of social anxiety. And it's meant to be a comedy, really. I mean, it's kind of like a comedy mixed with bits of drama. But basically, he lives, I think, in like a garage at his brother's place, and he doesn't like talking to people. He doesn't do anything. He gets up, goes to church, comes back, you know, like works. I can't remember where he works. It's like a grocery store or something. And he's like super introverted. They'll be like, "Hey, Lars, come eat dinner." And he's like, "No, I'm fine." And then he'll go in, shut the door, and lock it. And just like, because he doesn't want to deal with anybody, right? Mm-hmm. And so they keep telling him, we need to get Lars to meet somebody. And so eventually he orders like a sex mannequin, and it shows up, and he starts treating it as if it's a real person.
Whoa.
And the town psychologist basically says the only way to help him get through the sort of psychosis is if you basically enable him. Like, you have to treat this as if it's a real person, and eventually what they decide to do, well, I'm not going to say anything else actually, but it is, I genuinely, from like the first 15 minutes in through the rest of the movie, was never a point where I wasn't at least half crying, because it was, and it's a comedy, so I did laugh a lot. But it was so sad to me to realize that, like, this is an actual thing. There are people with this social anxiety, you know, because I have social anxiety, but not to this level. And I think, like, wow, mine's hard to deal with. Look at this guy. He can't even, like, have a girlfriend because he does, like, you know, it's, I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to ruin, like, certain key plot points. But it was so, like, touching and so just believable to see Ryan Gosling playing this guy that just, his social anxiety was literally crippling. You know, that he couldn't do these things. That was the last time that I cried hardcore. Rachel was actually out at a bar, I think. And I was like, all right, shut the door, turn it on. Lars and the Real Girl. I did not expect to cry throughout the whole thing either. I was like, oh, I've wanted to watch this. I love Ryan Gosling, so this should be good. And it was great. It was great. I highly recommend it. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but, and other people may not get the same experience. Because I think I told a couple people I cried at it, and they're like, what? It was like, it was as if I told them that I cried watching Ace Ventura. Like, they were like, how do you cry during that movie? And I was like, it's so tragic, you know, like this, but like I said, it's because I get into the emotion of the character, and that's the part that really gets me. I highly recommend that film, by the way, if it's still on Netflix or whatever else it is, because I want to see if it makes you sad when you watch it.
Well, you've definitely sold me on it, so I'm gonna add that to my list and check that out. It sounds good.
It's very good. It's very good.
See if it'll make me cry. Jeez, that's heavy. So of course I wouldn't bring this type of topic without some type of solution, or at least some type of suggestion for how we as men can overcome this. You know, we're not allowed to cry, we're not allowed to show emotion or any kind of weakness or vulnerability. Because really, the first thing, like step one, understand the culture that we live in, understand our history, and why we are expected to act the way that we are. And I'll tell you, I think I've even said this on the show before. Like, I work with the alpha males, and when we're all together, that's what you get is alpha, alpha, alpha. We're all tough and we're all strong. But as soon as it splits up and then we're all kind of one-on-one, then you start to see behind the curtain a little bit where people start showing their vulnerabilities and showing that, you know, oh, yeah, dude, I watched Lars and the Real Girl, and I lost it. And I'm like, I knew it! You know? But when we're all together, it's not that way. So for all these, you know, man's men that claim this, and that, we're all the same. Every single one of us has an emotion. We have cried at something, whether it's losing somebody close to you or a movie or a game. Every one of us shows an emotion. So first we have to understand why we act that way. The second step is we have to accept the necessity for why we're actually crying. If our body says, hey, there's too much stuff going on here, we got to release this pressure, then that's there for a reason. It's there as a survival mechanism or whatever, because, again, we've seen it's not just physical survival, it's mental, it's emotional, and spiritual survival of your body's trying to stay balanced. And if it has to do this to do that, so be it. And then finally, I tell people, you know, if you want to be a man, man up, ignore the cultural stereotypes, and, you know, do whatever you want. If you want to be a man and do whatever the F you want, do it. You want to cry? Do it.
Right.
Be a man and have a good cry.
Right.
Simple as that.
It was a good topic, because I don't necessarily think it gets talked about a lot, because talking about it, you know, it just is part of that, like, not talking about it, you know, like, we don't talk about crying, so we're not going to talk about why we don't talk about it, you know, and all that kind of crap. So I was glad you brought it to the show. And, you know, the reason I felt like it was a good topic is because I've actually been able to come to terms with the fact that I don't really care about crying. I mean, if you want to see me kick your ass, I'll also kick your ass. So, yeah.
And then I'll cry about it.
Right. Like, I don't have to worry about, like, losing any of my manhood because of it. But, no, I thought it was a great topic to bring up. I appreciate you coming on the show today. Really boosted up our very chill and relaxed first half of the show. So, thank you very much, Ross. We will be seeing you next week.
All right. Later.
and he disappears. And then I do this. Boom. And I'm back. Alrighty, well, now that Ross is gone, well, let's say our goodbyes and our farewells. No song at the end of the show today, so remember, I'm going to be playing an outro a little bit. And then that's it. And then you can go. And you're out 30 minutes before you normally get out. It's like school on a Friday. If you want to help out the show, tell your friends. Share social media posts. If you see us posting on Facebook, if you see us posting on Twitter. You're not going to see us posting on Twitter because I forget about it. But if you see us post in one of those places, share it. Reshare the posts. Any episode that you get a chance, maybe people start catching on like, oh, it's on, seems like it's on Saturday morning since we're in all the posts are coming in. Maybe I'll check it out. All that kind of stuff helps us out. If you want to figure out how you can sponsor a segment, go to our website. You can find out more information. It's like saying, Jake, what the hell's the website? Well, it's streamthemachine.com. You can support our Patreon page at patreon.com/streamthemachine. You don't even have to donate any money there. Just go there, become a supporter. And if at some point you're like, you know what, these guys, they deserve $1 a month or $5 a month or whatever. If you feel like donating, then go right ahead. We're very grateful for that kind of stuff, and it helps the show keep going. It helps us provide a quality product for you. Email in your music. I love playing local music or just music that's from people that aren't these randos that I keep finding online. I love playing their music as well because it helps them get recognition, but at the same time, I want to play music from people I know, from people that know people I know. I love the sort of intimate, the personal feel that I get from helping somebody out like that, because it also helps our show out. It definitely raises the bar for the quality of product that we put out. I'm not even going to say anything about Twitter because I don't use it, and Tony's not here. You can follow the podcast at STM Podcast. I forget to post there all the time, so really go to Facebook. It's the easiest way to follow us. I want to thank everybody for their help. Really just Ross, not Tony today, because Tony's not here, so I ain't thanking him for nothing. Thanks, Ross, for being an awesome addition to the show. And really thank you to Tony for always being there as well. It's like I said, I wouldn't have minded a day off today, but gotta keep going, gotta keep doing it, and it's completely cool for Tony to be able to take time when he needs to. I'm taking time when I need to in 2-3 weeks. So we'll definitely be glad to have him back next week. I always, it's always a different experience when Tony's gone. I get to do something different like this, so it's exciting for me. But at the same time, it's always doubly exciting to get Tony back on the show. Same thing with Ross. Whenever Ross is out, it's always fun to get him back. Next week, 10:30 on a Saturday, episode 42 with 100% more Tony and just about the same amount of Ross. That'll be it for our show today. We had a very non-clip heavy show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Tony. Don't slam the f***ing door.
That's what I have to tell him every time after the podcast when he decides to leave the room. And this one for Ross, I guess. Anyway, that is our show. That's it. I'm going to play an outro bumper here. Go enjoy your Saturday. I'm going to sit down. Well, I have to post the show now. But then I want to sit down and I'm going to enjoy Yakuza. I'm going to try and beat it and move on, I guess. Anyways, enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your weekend. Come back and listen to us next week. Have a great weekend, ladies and gentlemen.
This has been a Fly Science Productions podcast.